Jacob's well in Wimberley had zero flow. This monitor next to me shows you what it looks like right now. This monitor over here, though, shows you what it used to look like when the water was flowing.
The drone slipped beneath the surface, its lights slicing through the blue like knives. For the first few seconds, everything looked calm, beautiful even. But this wasn't a casual dive. This machine was entering a place locals warn you never to go. A place that has swallowed people so completely that their bodies were never meant to return. Scientists leaned toward their monitors as the signal descended, watching it drift into the narrow, twisting passages divers whisper about as the trap. The mission was supposed to be simple: map the cave. But what the camera captured instead confirmed every nightmare ever told about this place. In the sun-baked hills of central Texas, just outside the quiet town of Wimberley, there's a perfectly round hole in the limestone bed of Cypress Creek. Only 12 feet across, clear water, constantly cold. On any summer day, it looks like paradise. Families laugh, tourists line up. One by one, people jump in, disappearing into water so clear it feels harmless, inviting, safe. But that picture hides something most swimmers never see. Because that hole isn't just water, it's an entrance, a vertical drop into a massive underwater cave system so dangerous it's earned a chilling reputation in the diving world, a place where at least 12 people have gone down and never come back. And when scientists finally send a machine where humans couldn't survive, it didn't just map rock and stone, it uncovered a truth that had been buried for decades, waiting in the dark. At first glance, Jacob's Well feels like a miracle hidden in plain sight. In the middle of the dry Texas hill country, where the sun bakes the limestone white and the heat never seems to break, this one spot stays alive. The water pours up from underground, impossibly clear, impossibly cold. Always 68 degrees, no matter the season. On a hot afternoon, the scene looks almost unreal. Kids splash near the edge, college students climb the surrounding rocks, daring each other to jump. Tourists crowd the limestone ledges, phones out, waiting for the perfect shot as bodies disappear into the blue and resurface laughing seconds later. It feels controlled, shallow, safe, like nature designed a swimming pool and forgot to put up warning signs. But that calm is a lie. What most people don't realize is that Jacob's Well isn't a well at all. There's no bucket, no bottom you can touch. That perfectly round opening is the mouth of something much larger, a vertical cave that drops straight down into darkness, bored through limestone over thousands of years by moving water. The swimmers only ever see the first room, a sunlit chamber about 30 feet deep where the rock shelves out and the light still reaches. Below that point, the joy stops. Because everything past that bright, welcoming room belongs to something else entirely. And once you cross that invisible line, there's no guarantee you'll ever find your way back. Once you pass the first chamber, Jacob's Well stops feeling like a swimming hole and starts revealing what it really is. This isn't an open space carved clean and simple. It's a karst spring, a vertical gateway drilled deep into the Trinity Aquifer, one of the largest underground water sources in Texas. What looks peaceful at the surface is actually the front door to a sprawling underwater maze. For trained cave divers, the first room is just a warm-up. The real system begins beyond it, where the cave angles downward and the light from above vanishes completely. From there, the well splits into a series of chambers, each one more hostile than the last. They're connected by tight, twisting passages so narrow that a diver's tanks scrape rock on both sides. These routes aren't nicknamed for fun. They're called the birth canal, the coffin, the final squeeze. And those names are earned. The most dangerous part isn't the depth. It isn't even the tight spaces. It's the illusion of safety. The water in Jacob's Well is famous for its clarity. Visibility can stretch for dozens of feet, making everything feel open and manageable. But that clarity is a weapon. The floors of these deeper chambers aren't solid stone. They're coated in a fine, powdery layer of limestone silt and loose gravel, stacked and balanced by time. One wrong fin kick is all it takes. In an instant, the cave can explode into a white cloud so thick it erases everything. Divers call it a silt out. No direction, no instruments, no guideline to follow back out if one was even late. Just total blindness in freezing water. Panic follows fast, breathing speeds up, air disappears, and in a place with no room to turn around, seconds matter more than skill. This is why bodies are still down there, trapped too deep, buried in unstable passages no one can safely reach. Jacob's Well doesn't just claim victims, it keeps them. And somehow, knowing all of this only made certain people want to go deeper. As the years passed, Jacob's Well stopped being just a dangerous dive site and became something else entirely. A challenge, a legend. Every death added to its reputation, and in a strange way, that reputation only made it more attractive, especially to young, ambitious cave divers who wanted to prove themselves, to be the one who went farther than anyone before. Whispers spread through the diving community. Stories of hidden chambers, of passages no one had fully mapped, of a final room that only a handful of people had ever seen and lived to talk about. The danger wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. The bodies kept adding up. Local authorities eventually stepped in, desperate to break the cycle. They knew they couldn't change human curiosity, but they could try to block access to the most dangerous parts of the cave. A heavy metal grate was welded over the entrance to the deeper chambers, thick steel bars reinforced and bolted into the limestone. On paper, it should have ended the story. It didn't. Divers came back at night, when the crowds were gone and the creek was quiet. They brought bolt cutters. They pried the metal open, bent it back, and slipped into the water anyway. Over and over again. The well refused to stay sealed, and no barrier seemed strong enough to keep people from chasing whatever they believed was waiting below. That's when the focus shifted. If humans couldn't safely explore Jacob's Well, maybe something else could. And that decision would lead to a discovery no one was prepared for. Jacob's Well wasn't just a danger to divers, it was too important to ignore. The spring feeds Cypress Creek and acts as a direct window into the Trinity Aquifer, a massive underground water system that supplies drinking water to millions of people across Texas. What happened inside that cave mattered far beyond curiosity or thrill-seeking. Scientists needed answers. How deep did the system really go? How were the passages changing over time? And what made this particular cave so uniquely lethal? After everything that had happened, sending another human down wasn't an option. The risk was no longer just high, it was unjustifiable. So the plan changed. Instead of risking another life, researchers turned to technology. They brought in an advanced underwater drone, a remotely operated vehicle designed for places people couldn't survive. Industrial-grade, pressure-resistant, outfitted with powerful forward-facing lights, multiple high-definition cameras, and sonar capable of mapping solid rock in complete darkness. A thick fiber-optic tether connected it to the surface, feeding live video back to a mobile command center parked beside the creek. The goal was straightforward. Lower the drone into the well, guide it through the known chambers, reach the fourth chamber, and finally create the first complete map of Jacob's Well. The scientists were focused, calm, confident. They believed they were about to document geology, not history. What none of them realized was that the drone wasn't just heading into an unexplored cave. It was descending into a decades-old grave. On a clear, quiet morning, the research team gathered at the edge of Jacob's Well. A white van sat nearby, its doors open to reveal rows of glowing monitors and humming equipment. This wasn't a spectacle. There were no crowds, no laughter, just focused faces and a sense that whatever happened next needed to be done carefully. The drone, painted bright yellow and nicknamed Explorer, was lowered gently into the water. On the screens, the image filled with blue as the machine slipped beneath the surface. Its thrusters engaged, and the descent began. The first chamber looked almost peaceful. At around 30 feet down, sunlight poured through the opening above, illuminating smooth limestone walls carved by centuries of flowing water. It was the same view swimmers see from below. Calm, inviting. Nothing about it hinted at what lay ahead. Then the drone tilted forward and followed the sloping passage into the second chamber. The blue faded into darkness. By 80 feet, the sunlight was gone completely. The drone's lights snapped on, cutting a sharp white cone through the black. The walls closed in, pale stone stretching endlessly into the shadows. Everything felt tighter, heavier. Ahead was the first real obstacle, the birth canal. The sonar showed how narrow it was, barely wide enough for the drone to pass through. The floor was covered in loose gravel and fine silt, exactly the kind that could blind the cameras if disturbed. The operator eased off the thrusters, inching the machine forward with slow, deliberate movements. One mistake here could end the mission. Minutes passed in silence. Then the drone slipped through. On the other side was the third chamber, a wider, empty space that felt like a holding room between worlds. The team paused, checking systems, watching the live feed for any sign of instability. Everything was holding steady. At the far end of the chamber, the camera caught a small, dark crack in the rock wall. Narrow, unwelcoming. This was the entrance to the fourth chamber, the point of no return. The operator guided the drone toward it, and as the machine pushed into the tight tunnel, its lights reflected off something that didn't look like stone. And in that instant, everyone watching knew the mission had just changed forever. The operator froze the controls. At first, it was just a flash, a dull glint where there shouldn't have been one. He nudged the drone forward an inch and adjusted the camera. The image sharpened, and the shape became unmistakable. A scuba fin, half buried in loose gravel, angled upward as if someone had tried to kick free and failed. The van went silent. The drone's lights swept slowly across the floor. A few feet away sat an old oxygen tank, its metal corroded and dull, the regulator crusted over from years underwater. Straps hung loose, tangled in stone. Then the camera caught a strip of black neoprene, a shredded piece of a wetsuit snagged on a jagged edge of rock. This wasn't debris. The operator zoomed in further, his hands steady but tense. Tucked into a narrow crevice, partially pinned beneath shifting gravel, were human remains. A skeleton locked in place by the cave itself. The fourth chamber wasn't just dangerous, it was a tomb. What began as a scientific survey had instantly turned into something far heavier. The drone hovered there, its lights illuminating a scene no diver had witnessed in decades. The gear looked old, outdated by modern standards. This wasn't a recent accident. As the camera drifted closer, the team noticed something else. On a tattered scrap of fabric still clinging to the remains was a faded name tag. The letters were almost gone, worn down by time and water. The operator adjusted the focus, capturing every pixel he could. Slowly, the name came into view. Kent Maupin. The realization hit like a punch to the chest. This wasn't just any missing diver. Kent Maupin had vanished in Jacob's Well in 1979. His disappearance was one of the most infamous tragedies in the well's history. For decades, no one knew exactly where he had ended up or what had happened in his final moments. Now, a machine was staring straight at the answer. But the horror didn't stop there. As the drone panned its camera around the cramped space, its lights caught another set of tanks, another fin, another silent outline in the darkness. Kent hadn't been alone. The fourth chamber wasn't a single grave. It was a mass burial, hidden behind rock and gravel, waiting for the wrong light to shine on it. And to understand how this happened, you have to go back to the night it all went wrong.
To understand what the drone uncovered, you have to rewind more than 4 decades, back to a time when cave diving was still the wild frontier. Safety standards were loose, rules were more like suggestions, and pushing limits was how reputations were made. Kent Maupin was part of that world. He was young, experienced, and known for being fearless underwater. Jacob's Well fascinated him. He had already dived it multiple times, but like so many others, his attention kept drifting toward the same place, the fourth chamber. The deepest, most mysterious part of the system, the one few people talked about and even fewer claimed to have reached. On September 9, 1979, Kent came to the well with a group of divers from Pasadena. Among them was a college student named Mark Brazier. Mark was eager, ambitious, and looked up to Kent. That night, excitement buzzed through the group as they set up camp near the water. It felt like an adventure, not a warning. As darkness settled in, Kent and Mark geared up. What they didn't bring mattered more than what they did. No extra lights, no safety reels, no guideline leading back to the surface. The most basic rule of cave diving was ignored. Their plan relied on confidence and memory alone. Another diver named Joe entered the water with them. He followed as they descended through the first chamber, then into the second. He watched them squeeze through the birth canal and enter the third chamber. Everything up to that point looked normal. Then Kent and Mark swam past him. Joe watched in confusion as they headed straight toward the small, dark opening at the far end of the chamber, the entrance to the fourth chamber. No one had said they were going that far. He saw them stop, then do something that made his stomach drop. They began pushing their heavy steel tanks ahead of them, forcing their bodies into the narrow passage. Kent disappeared into the darkness. Mark followed. Joe stayed at the entrance, panic rising. He swept his dive light back and forth, trying to catch Mark's attention. Mark never turned around. The beam vanished into the black hole ahead. Joe checked his air. It was dropping fast. He banged his knife against his tank, the sharp metallic clang echoing through the water, the universal signal for danger. No response, just silence. Then, the water around him changed. The crystal-clear visibility collapsed into a cloudy white blur. A silt out. Somewhere deeper inside the cave, something had shifted. Whether it was panic, movement, or the cave itself giving way, Joe didn't know. He only knew he was running out of time. With no choice left, he turned back and ascended alone. When he broke the surface, Kent and Mark were gone. The well had taken them. The next morning, the recovery team arrived at Jacob's Well with grim determination. Don Dibble, a former Navy diver and one of the state's most experienced deep-sea rescuers, led the operation. Alongside him was his partner, Paul Battaglia, and a small team of trained volunteers. They knew what they were walking into, a deadly maze of silt, gravel, and narrow passages that had already claimed lives. The first divers descended cautiously, garden trowels in hand. They reached the entrance to the fourth chamber and immediately saw the obstacle that had trapped Kent and Mark. A shifting pile of gravel stretched across the passage, unstable and ready to collapse at the slightest disturbance. Every handful they removed triggered more to fall from above. It was like trying to dig a hole in dry sand, underwater, in the dark. Don Dibble knew the risks. He adjusted his gear, checked his air, and made the call that only a veteran could. "I'm going in." With Calvin Turner at his side, he slipped into the narrow opening. They left extra tanks along the way and carefully ran safety lines, the standard procedure for deep or complicated dives. Inside, the passage was worse than anyone imagined. Don pushed forward, holding his light and safety line, only to feel the gravel cascade over him. The weight pinned his arms, constricting movement. Visibility dropped to zero in an instant. He was buried alive, trapped in complete darkness, air depleting fast. Panic would have been natural, but Don stayed calm. He faced the impossible and made a survival decision that defied reason. In a desperate moment, he swallowed water, letting his body react with an involuntary jerk that freed him just enough to grasp Calvin's outstretched regulator. He inhaled deeply. He was alive. But the nightmare wasn't over. As they ascended, the air trapped in Don's stomach expanded rapidly from the pressure change. The pain was unbearable. By the time he reached the surface, it felt as though his body had ballooned. Hours of agony followed in the hospital, culminating in a shocking diagnosis: a ruptured stomach wall and a life-threatening infection, a 1 in a million injury. Against all odds, he survived. Meanwhile, efforts to recover Kent and Mark continued. Experts tried everything: clearing gravel with suction hoses, running recompression chambers, and even consulting multiple commercial diving companies. Every attempt failed. The well's gravel bed was too unstable. Every foot cleared was replaced by more sliding rock. After 12 grueling days, the decision was made. Kent Maupin and Mark Brasher would remain in the fourth chamber. The well was sealed, this time with a concrete lid and reinforced grate. The physical danger had been conquered, but the legends, the mysteries and the stories surrounding Jacob's Well were only beginning to grow. The drone footage decades later would finally reveal the truth about the fourth chamber. It wasn't just a cave, it was a predator, a tomb of shifting gravel silently waiting. And yet, even that didn't answer all the questions. What really lurked in the depths? What made this place so hypnotically dangerous? The story was far from over. Even after the fourth chamber was sealed, Jacob's Well didn't lose its power over the imagination. The drone footage from the Explorer mission shocked the world. It confirmed the deadly reality of the gravel trap, showing exactly how Kent Maupin had been pinned decades ago. The chamber wasn't just dangerous, it was a tomb, and it had claimed more than one life over the years. But what the footage didn't explain was why this place seemed to pull people in again and again. Locals, divers, and adventurers began whispering that Jacob's Well wasn't merely a natural phenomenon. Some believed it had a life of its own, an energy that could mesmerize those who came too close. Survivors of near-fatal dives reported an almost hypnotic feeling, a compulsion to explore just a little further, to see what lay around the next bend. Silt outs didn't feel random, they felt intentional, like the cave itself was enforcing its secrets. Theories grew wilder over time. Some insisted the well was a bottomless pit, descending far deeper than the drone had mapped. Others claimed it was alive, infused with a sacred energy passed down from the Native American tribes who once considered it holy. Divers swore they could feel a hum emanating from the water, a low-frequency vibration that seemed to draw them closer. And then there were the stories of creatures. The Trinity Aquifer is a massive, mostly unexplored underground ocean. Could something live in its eternal darkness? Could a predator, adapted to crushing pressures and total blackness, call Jacob's Well its territory? Shadows seen in the drone footage, once dismissed as rocks or reflections, fueled these ideas. Perhaps the disappearances weren't just accidents. Perhaps something was waiting. Some theories even ventured into the supernatural. Was the well a vortex? An interdimensional portal? A place where the veil between worlds thinned? The more dangerous the well, the more irresistible it became, and the drone's chilling expedition showing the silent skeletons and shifting gravel of the fourth chamber only added fuel to the fire. Jacob's Well had been mapped, documented, and sealed. Its physical dangers were understood, but its mysteries, its legends, its hypnotic pull, its possible secrets remained unsolved. For decades, the world had stared at this dark, perfect circle in the creek and asked the same question. Is it just a cave, or is it something far more sinister? And that question is far from answered. Jacob's Well is more than just a swimming hole. It's a window into a deadly, beautiful, and mysterious world hidden beneath the surface of Texas Hill Country. What looks like paradise is, in reality, a trap, carefully carved over millennia, capable of claiming the lives of even the most skilled divers. The drone's footage revealed what humans couldn't safely witness, a fourth chamber that is both a grave and a testament to the cave's unforgiving nature. Yet the story doesn't end with science or tragedy. Legends endure. The well continues to draw the curious, the adventurous, and the brave. Its pull, its energy, its secrets remain a magnet for mystery seekers, scientists, and thrill seekers alike. From deadly gravel slides to eerie hums, from shadowy creatures to theories of interdimensional portals, Jacob's Well has proven time and again that some places are more than they seem. It is a reminder that nature can be beautiful, hypnotic, and lethal all at once, that exploration comes with risk, that some mysteries, no matter how thoroughly mapped or filmed, may never be fully understood. Jacob's Well is a place of wonder and warning, a dark mirror beneath the calm waters, waiting silently for those who dare to look too closely. And in its depths, the story of Kent Mopin, Mark Brasher, and countless others serves as a chilling truth. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed, and some secrets are guarded by darkness itself.